do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. It is Thursday. This week's just moving. Absolutely flying. We got a ton of stuff going on. Bruce Arians had thoughts on Anthony Richardson. The Masters round one is today. Quin Ewers visited the Colts. The Pacers have an excellent opportunity to clinch the 4th seed tonight. Luka returned to Dallas last night. Just so many things going on in the great, great world of sports. Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for tuning in no matter how you are tuning in. And we're going to start with the one and only Super Bowl winning head coach, Bruce Arians. I guess he was on the NFL network yesterday, and he was talking to, who knows who. And he was asked about Anthony Richardson. And he had some interesting comments on the soon-to-be third-year quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Bruce Arians right there talking about Indianapolis Colts third-year quarterback Anthony Richardson and how important this year is, how, just the rough starts to Anthony Richardson's career. And, the internet aggregators who pull clips like this are so funny. Like if you go and you find that tweet, they read out the comment and it's just like all the bad stuff about Richardson. I find it really funny because if you listen to the whole clip, Bruce Arians was in no way writing off Anthony Richardson in that clip. He just thinks that Anthony Richardson needed 2 more years in college to develop as a passer. And he thinks that Daniel Jones is really going to push him. And he said that obviously right there at the end. And those 2 years of development that Bruce Arians thought that Anthony Richardson needed are now under his belt. He's had 2 seasons in the NFL, 1 full offseason without having to rehab, to develop as a passer. And, if you want to argue that he should have stayed in college and come out this year, he is the same age as all the guys being drafted this year, but that's neither here nor there. You can't convince me that the coaching he would have gotten at Florida is better than the coaching that he's gotten with the Colts. If Anthony Richardson is going to make any sort of leap, if he's ever going to show to be any sort of, NFL franchise quarterback, it's going to be this year. And when Anthony Richardson was drafted and throughout his time here in Indianapolis, there have been several comparisons to the second best quarterback in the NFL, Josh Allen, because they're both big and they're both, fast and athletic and can put their bodies on the line and have, cannons for arms. And when Josh Allen was drafted out of Wyoming, he clearly needed some time. And he ends up popping in year 3. And part of why Josh Allen didn't develop until year 3 is because he needed 2 years to develop as a passer. His numbers at Wyoming were worse than Anthony Richardson's numbers at Florida. They both completed around 55% of their passes. Josh Allen threw 6 more interceptions than Anthony Richardson. Josh Allen ran the ball more than Anthony Richardson, which tells me that the coaches at Wyoming wanted him to run the ball because they didn't trust him to throw it. And one of the things about Josh Allen is he's really famously the only quarterback in the history of the NFL to have a year 3 leap. And for Colts fans that are still holding out hope for the number 4 overall pick, Anthony Richardson, the hope is that Anthony Richardson becomes the second quarterback to ever have a year 3 leap. That's the hope. That is, the ultimate dream for not just Colts fans, but obviously for that organization as well. Because if Anthony Richardson comes back and he looks like a dude and he's, changing protection at the line and he's identifying the blitz and he's making throws on time and more importantly on target, then all of a sudden, the Chris Ballard has job security again and Shane Steichen's not going anywhere and we're rolling with these dudes. The best case scenario for the Colts, as I've hammered home so many times, is for Anthony Richardson to come into year 3 and be awesome. And this is the year for it to happen. Like, if he doesn't come back significantly better this year, then it's probably not going to happen for Anthony Richardson in the NFL as a quarterback. And the argument for year 3 to be the year for Anthony Richardson to make that leap is exactly what Bruce Arians just said. He needed 2 years to develop as a passer. Those 2 years have now happened. And when you look at Josh Allen and you look at Anthony Richardson, both of those guys came into the NFL less polished than every other quarterback that has been drafted in the first round in this modern era. Like, just run through them. Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May. Just like go through, just look at the 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round last year. They were all significantly more polished than Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson were. And because of that, a lot of them were able to show up and have success pretty quickly, which is still abnormal. Most quarterbacks show up in their rookie season, and it's rough because playing in the NFL is hard. When you're, 22, 23 years old, playing against full-grown men that have been playing football for a long time, it is a tough adjustment going from playing college football to playing in the NFL. And most of these quarterbacks find success in their second season. They just need a year to adjust to the NFL and then figure it out. And when you look at Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson, Josh Allen, let's start with him. He needed time to figure out how to be more accurate with the football, and he had to adjust to playing in the NFL. And for Anthony Richardson, it's the exact same thing. He's had to adjust to learning how to play in the NFL, plus rehab all of these injuries, plus try to, improve as a passer. Like, that's a lot. Like, that seems like a lot of things to figure out in 1 year. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you can't throw every day because you have an issue with your shoulder. Okay? Like this is the glass half full view for Anthony Richardson. Okay? Because when you go back to last year, we did see improvement. We did. He showed that he figured some things out last year. Okay, like, you don't have 3 game-winning drives as a starting quarterback in the NFL if you haven't figured anything out whatsoever. He looked great against the Jets. That is by far the best game of his career. He put together what was one of the cleanest game-winning drives you'll ever see. I mean, like, they ran like 5 plays, touchdown. And so you get this really clean version of that. And then you get that game against the Patriots where it's a 19-play game-winning drive where he just made every play on third down and he ends up muscling his way in during a 2-point conversion to win the game. There were some good moments last year. They happened later in the season, and the good moments seemed to be few and far between. But they were there. That's why the Colts haven't completely and totally given up on Anthony Richardson quite yet. And plus, like, they know better than anyone else how much development he needed, probably both on and off the field. But if he can just become more consistent this year, then I think Colts fans would be incredibly happy seeing what he brings to the table, even if he misses some easier throws from time to time. Because that is, very much in play for him. It's in play for every quarterback in the NFL. Like, go watch the Chiefs play. Like, you'll see Patrick Mahomes miss throws that you feel like he should make. It happens to every quarterback all the time. Obviously, the issue with Anthony Richardson was he just missed them too often. Okay? Like, you can't miss easy completions as often as Anthony Richardson did last year. Okay? You also can't only throw the ball deep. I know everyone is very concerned with the accuracy issues from Anthony Richardson. For me, the thing that I really want to see him mature and grow in is the decision making. Because there are moments and times where last year you would watch him play quarterback and he's just staring downfield. It's like this ball's going to Alec Pierce, who's running a go route, or it's going to Josh Downs, who's running a post. Like there was never any consideration to be like, oh, there's Jonathan Taylor in the flat. Let me flip it out to him and let's let him run for 7 yards. That thought just never really seemed to cross Anthony Richardson's mind. And you obviously can't only throw the ball deep. And I do think part of that was the play calling from Steichen. It just kind of seemed like he only wanted to throw it deep. And he would, talks every week about big plays and how important they are. And he's right. They are important. It's hard to win and score points in the NFL if you aren't, hitting, some chunk plays from time to time. But you still have to have the other stuff there in between. Okay, we know that Richardson can throw it deep. The question is going to be down, like first down, second down. Can he complete, second and 5 to Josh Downs, who's running a 4-yard slant? Can he do that? Because if he can, then he's going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. Because Bruce Arians was discussing it in that clip, talking about how if you aren't good in 2-minute and on third down, then you're going to be really average in the NFL because that is where the money is made. Patrick Mahomes has been crowned as the best quarterback in the NFL for a while now because he's awesome on third down and in 2-minute. Like you watch Patrick Mahomes and there's a minute and 56 seconds left. They're down by 5. You just everyone who watches him play. There's just this overwhelming feeling of, he's probably going to score a touchdown here because he's Patrick Mahomes. And on 3rd and 7, when the Chiefs are winning and they need to ice the game and they have to throw it and everyone in the building and everyone watching at home knows that they have to throw it, you feel like they're going to get that first down. Anthony Richardson is not to that point yet. Clearly. With that being said, the Jets game gives you some hope for that with that 2-minute drive. The game against the Patriots with the game-winning drive, that gives you some hope there as well because you saw him consistently convert third downs when everyone who was watching that game knew that they were throwing the football. That is the question not only for Anthony Richardson, but for every quarterback that plays in the NFL. When everyone knows that you're throwing the football, can you complete the pass for however many yards you need? Can you do it? That is what the great quarterbacks do, and all the average ones don't do that. Daniel Jones, he doesn't do that. I know that because he's currently gonna compete with Anthony Richardson to be a starting quarterback. And I do think that Bruce Arians is very much correct, and that Daniel Jones being present is going to push and challenge Anthony Richardson. Okay? And I'm excited to see this because when you show up and the job is just yours and everyone knows it, it's easy to be lazy. I think it's easier to, only throw the ball deep because it's like, are you really going to bench me for 39-year-old Joe Flacco? No, you and I both know that you're probably not going to do that unless you absolutely have to. And they absolutely had to last year, clearly. And knowing that there's a real threat behind him hopefully makes him more engaged. Hopefully it makes him a little more willing to just take a profit. And I'm excited. I really hope that Anthony Richardson is the starter. I hope he figures these things out. I hope the threat of Daniel Jones leads to Anthony Richardson, taking things more seriously on and off the field. Hopefully it leads to more consistently, and hopefully Anthony Richardson winds up being the Colts guy for the next decade. Because that's really what Colts fans want. Because if it's Daniel Jones, then we're just right back where we started. It's another Carson Wentz. We went 9-8. Bummer. I don't want that, and you don't want that. So it'll be Daniel Jones, maybe, hopefully not. The Colts will go 7-10, 8-9. they'll end up, with like the 13th pick, and then they'll draft the third or fourth best quarterback in the draft class. And we'll be right back to hoping that this next quarterback that the Colts drafted winds up developing. I don't want that, and you don't want that. I say either be great, win 10 or 11 games, or be bad and win 3. That way you can draft Arch or Nico Iamaleava, or there's another guy at Florida, DJ Lagway, whoever it is. I don't care. Either be great or be terrible. Please do not be average again. But the Colts the Colts are also going to be drafting a quarterback this year. Hopefully they don't have to draft one next year. I really hope that they don't have to draft one this next season. But they are going to draft one this year. They let Sam Ehlinger go. They're going to grab someone on day 3. And they hosted Quin Ewers, who I've been relatively vocal about. I like his game. I think that this dude can really play. He's a very talented guy who won games in Texas. Like this guy is a winner, and I think that that's important. He visited with the Colts yesterday. My thoughts on that and how important that is for the Colts when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket. If you head over there, subscribe, hop in the chat to be part of the conversation. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. Maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app where you can listen to both my show and the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3, where you can hear me chime in from time to time. And if you want even more from me, go check out my other YouTube page, My Take Is. Now, Quin Ewers visited the Indianapolis Colts yesterday, and that's important because the Colts need a third-string quarterback. No way around it. They let Sam Ehlinger walk in the offseason. I can't believe they did that. Sam Ehlinger was going to be the future. Oh, man. So they let him leave. You know, he's playing for the Broncos now. Congratulations, Sam. And the Colts hosted another Texas quarterback, Quin Ewers, yesterday for, a pre-draft visit. I don't know how it went. I'm assuming that it went well, but it does confirm the idea that the Colts are going to take a quarterback at some point during the NFL draft. It'll probably be a day 3 pick. It seems like every time I read a mock draft, the stock on Quin Ewers goes down. He keeps falling. The dude is plummeting. Okay, so he would make a lot of sense for the Colts, right? Because whoever you take on day 3 is going to wind up being, your third string quarterback for this season. And I definitely like him more than all the other day 3 quarterbacks. Like, the guy is talented. You don't come out of high school with the highest rated recruit ever unless you're talented. You don't win a whole bunch of games at Texas unless you're talented. And if I'm drafting a quarterback on day 3, I want it to be a guy who's got some talent, who's played in some big games, and more importantly, has won a lot of games. And Quin Ewers checks all of those boxes. Quin Ewers won college football playoff games at Texas. He won his conference multiple times during his time at Texas. He was highly touted coming out of high school. Is he a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL? Probably not. If he was, then he wouldn't be a day 3 pick. Oh, but Tom Brady, 6th-round pick. Yeah, the exception, not the rule. And when you take Quin Ewers and you compare him to the rest of the options on day 3, it's like Kyle McCord. It's like, I don't know. He couldn't really hack it at Ohio State with all that talent around him. Yeah. Oh, he was really good at Syracuse. Yeah, the ACC was terrible. It's awful. the worst conference in college football this season. Riley Leonard, another guy who will probably be available on day 3. Well, what about him? Absolutely not. I do not want Riley Leonard. Why would we want the lesser version of, why would we want Anthony Richardson with none of the talent? Because that's really who Riley Leonard was. The dude ran it, but, he wasn't blazing fast. He wasn't super shifty. He wasn't very accurate when he threw the football. The guy's tough. He won some games, but come on. Quin Ewers handled being the guy at Texas very well. Okay. A nice, important prospect coming out of high school, very talented. And he, most importantly, he throws the ball well. Okay. Like he can drop back and throw the ball underneath to whoever running whatever route. Okay. That is really all that you're looking for in a day 3 guy, a guy who can just run your offense when you absolutely need him to. And it seems like he can do that. Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian was asked about Quin Ewers during an interview the other day with former Texas quarterback Colt McCoy. Just all these Texas quarterbacks today. Jeez. He asked Coach Sarkisian his thoughts on Quin Ewers coming out of Texas and how he would measure up as an NFL quarterback. Let's try that one more time. Here's Coach Sarkisian giving his thoughts on Quin Ewers as an NFL quarterback. Coach Sarkisian, Quin Ewers is college head coach right there, talking about Quin Ewers as a potential NFL quarterback. And my favorite thing in that clip is that Coach Sarkisian makes Quin Ewers sound like an adult. That's what he makes him sound like. Hey, plays well, plays bad, doesn't bother him. He's going to show up the next day. Same work ethic, all of those things. And when you're a third-string quarterback and you're not playing and you're really just showing up at practice, drawing a paycheck, going to games on Sunday, you've been a starter your entire life, because if you're a third-string quarterback on an NFL team, that means that you were once upon a time an absolute stud somewhere else. And all of a sudden, you're not playing, you're not getting any reps. You need an adult who can handle that and understands what that whole position entails. And Coach Sarkisian makes Quin Ewers sound like an adult. And if you're going to be a third-string quarterback, then you better be a freaking adult. Okay? You can't be making waves as a third-string quarterback. That will get you cut immediately. And Quin Ewers doesn't really seem like the type to make a bunch of issues. Okay? If he does get to play, seems like he can do the simple things at a minimum. Once again, the dude's going to be drafted on day 3, right? He's not going to show up and change the world. Okay, hopefully he never gets to play for the Colts. Hopefully Anthony Richardson starts every game from here on out because he's a stud. Okay, and look, if Quin Ewers does have to play, then things went terribly, really fast for the Indianapolis Colts this season. But once again, the dude seems like an adult, and that's really all that you're looking for in your third-string quarterback. And the Indianapolis Colts, their over-under win total came out earlier in, I think it was earlier in the week. Maybe it was last week, one way or the other. Their over-under win total is set at 7.5. And I know what you're thinking. That's not very many wins, and it's not. But it feels like the right number. Based on what we've seen from the Colts these last 2 years, it makes a ton of sense for that number to be at 7.5. Okay, and whether or not you're going to bet the over or the under is really based on one question. How do you feel about the quarterbacks on this roster? Because if you think it's going to be Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones and the Colts are going to get a similar level of quarterback play last year, or if they're going to get a similar level of quarterback play this year that they got last year, then I would bet the under. But if you think that Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones is going to be better this year than what the Colts had at quarterback last year, then bet the over. If you think that they're going to perform the same or worse, bet the under. But let's just be really honest about this. Do you know how hard it would be for the Colts to have worse quarterback play this year than they did last year? Do you know how impossible that seems? Their main starter had the second lowest completion percentage in the history of the NFL last year. And their other option to start this year is Daniel Jones, who got benched for Tommy DeVito. Come on. And then when you look at last year, Joe Flacco, I know for some reason people love that guy. They're like, oh, this guy won a Super Bowl 12 years ago. He's great. Nah, he wasn't. I think it'd be really hard for the Colts to do worse than Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson last year. I do think that Anthony Richardson is going to come back better this year than he was last year. Part of that is because it's hard to get worse than what he was last year. But the reality is he did have a full offseason to work on his ability to throw the football. When I played that Bruce Arians clip to open the show, he mentioned that Anthony Richardson has the reputation as a hard worker. If that's true, then he'll come back better in some way, shape, or form. Now, it may not be better in terms of like he may come back better and it not be, he's completing 67% of his passes and he threw for 5,500 yards and 38 touchdowns. Like I don't think it's going to be that. But if Anthony Richardson comes back and he runs the same way that he did last year and he completes 60% of his passes, then this Colts team is going to win 8 games or more. If Daniel Jones is, the Daniel Jones of a couple years ago where he took the Giants to the playoffs and he won a road playoff game, then the Colts are going to win more than 7.5 games this year. That's the simple reality of it. And because of that, as of now, I reserve the right to change my mind on this based off of what the Indianapolis Colts do in the draft this next year. I am going to take the Colts over 7.5 wins. Because the Colts are the definition of average, and 7 wins is below average. The Colts are going to win 8 or 9 games, unless, the injury bug bites them. But the Colts are going to finish 8-9 or 9-8, and they'll hit the over. That's where I'm at with it. Because the quarterback play, it can't be worse this year than it was last year. And the defense has gotten better. No more Gus Bradley. Lou Anarumo seems like he's going to be a better option as the defensive coordinator. They have real NFL-level players on the back end of their defense now between Cam Bynum and Charvarius Ward. They got rid of the missing tackle machine, EJ Speed, and hopefully whoever they replace him with can be better than what he was. Leatu Latu is coming back, and I think that he's going to be much improved. Hopefully he can actually finish some of these plays hopefully he can, finish some of these plays with sacks. And I'm not pounding the table saying his pressure rate is up. Like I don't want to do that. Hopefully Leatu Latu is finishing plays with some sacks this year. I think the Colts are really similar to what they were last year. 8-9, 9-8, walking around like, another average season from the Indianapolis Colts, and maybe 9-8 is good enough for them to make the playoffs. I don't think it will be. I think that we're kind of at a point where you need 10 wins or more, especially in the AFC. I mean, just look at the AFC West. It's Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, and then Sean Payton and Bo Nix. All 4 of those teams, just based off of the quarterback head coach combination, all 4 of those teams are good enough to make the playoffs because they have good head coaches and good quarterbacks. 8-9, 9-8 is not getting you into the playoffs if you're in the AFC. If you're in the NFC, then sure, maybe, just maybe. But in terms of, the AFC, it's not happening. No way around it. When we come back, speaking of playoffs, Pacers have an excellent opportunity tonight to clinch the 4th seed. I think that they'll do it. I feel pretty great about it. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. It is Masters Day. Let's go. We like Masters Day, or I do at least. I don't know if you do. Round one, it's already started. Guys have teed off down at Augusta National. And yeah, the Masters is cool. You'll hear my thoughts on that probably here shortly. But before we get to the Masters, the Pacers should, not saying they will, but they should clinch the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference tonight. That's what should happen. Will it happen? I don't know. They're playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have absolutely nothing to play for. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. And because of that, they're resting all of their best players. No Donovan Mitchell, no Darius Garland, no Evan Mobley, okay, no Max Strus. They're all listed as out. Not a chance. They are not playing. They are not appearing in this game whatsoever tonight, which really sucks for TNT because they're the ones carrying the game tonight. This game is also at home, and it is to clinch home court advantage in the first round. If they win this game tonight, the Milwaukee Bucks cannot catch them for the 4th seed. They should absolutely win this game tonight. Cavaliers are sitting their best players. It's at home. The Cavaliers are playing for absolutely nothing. They have the number 1 seed locked up, and they cannot catch the Oklahoma City Thunder to have the best record in the league and have home court advantage through the NBA Finals. The Pacers should absolutely win this game tonight. But as we know, the Pacers don't like to just take the easy road. Like, they're probably going to show up. They're probably going to go down early. They're going to forget that the Cleveland Cavaliers have an immense amount of depth. Like, Ty Jerome's going to play a lot of minutes tonight, and that dude can really ball. Jared Allen is still going to play tonight, and that guy is kind of a problem, especially on the defensive end of the floor. DeAndre Hunter, he's going to play tonight. That dude, he's really good. Okay, the Cavaliers are incredibly deep, and so just because they're sitting some of their better players doesn't mean that this game all of a sudden becomes a walk in the park. It's the reality of it. Okay, so they should win this game, undoubtedly. They're like 10.5-point favorites the last time that I checked. They're playing all their guys, Halliburton, Mathurin, Toppin, Walker, Turner. They're all playing. Nesmith, McConnell. They're all playing. They should win this game by 10. They should come out, punch the Cavaliers in the mouth right from the jump, and call it a day. And then rest those last 2 games, because an 82-game season, like, that's a long season, especially playing basketball where you're up and down and, you know, the game's kind of physical. And, like, I'm sure some of these Indiana Pacer players, as young as this team is, I'm sure some of them are tired and worn down a little bit. You're going to get a full week of rest after game 82 because they have to play all of the playing games. But, like, let's make it like a week and a half. Like, let's win tonight and not have to worry about, you know, the Magic on Friday night or game 82 in Cleveland on Sunday, which is the final game of the NBA season. It's a joyful, joyful day. There's going to be 15 NBA games on Sunday. I can't wait. My wife, we're sitting around and we're talking about plans for the weekend. What do we want to do? What are we going to do tonight? What are we going to do Friday? All that good stuff. And she looks at me, she goes, Jonathan, my wife is a school teacher. And she looks at me, she goes, Jonathan, I have a student who is in a play, and I would like to go on Saturday. And I was like, can't do Saturday. She asked me why not. And I was like, to be honest, because I don't want to. And she smiled. She understands that I don't want to go to some 11-year-old that I don't know and watch them act in a play. And so she's going to go on Sunday, which is perfect because she knows that there's 15 NBA games on and I'm going to be a little occupied. Okay. And of course, the Masters will also be on. So by the end of the weekend, potentially tonight, we will also know who the Pacers are going to play in the first round, whether it's the Bucks or the Pistons. Either way, can't wait. And I can't wait for Sunday because not only do we have 15 NBA basketball games on, and Game 82 is always fun because everyone's resting everybody, and bad teams are trying to lose. And so the good teams don't really care, and all the bad teams are like, yeah, we want to lose anyway. Now, this year's a little different because the Western Conference is so tight. Like some of those games are actually really going to matter. Like the Clippers are going to play the Warriors in game 82, and that game is like potentially, depending on what happens in the games prior, that game could mean either, hey, we're in the play-in, or hey, we're the 5th seed. I mean, like the Western Conference is just bonkers, insane, crazy right now. Okay, like only 3 teams have clinched a playoff spot in the Western Conference. There are 3 teams with 32 losses, and then there's 2 more teams with 33 losses. So the Western Conference, their game 82s are actually going to matter, but in the Eastern Conference, they're not going to matter as much unless the Bucks and the Pistons, like unless those final 2 games against each other really matter. In the Eastern Conference, it's pretty much all but settled. Out West, though, it's not. Anyway, speaking of things not being settled, the Masters, they started today. I must be very honest. I don't know much about golf. I just know that I'm bad at it. I just know that no matter what I do, I can't seem to get better at golf. And I don't like watching professional golf because it just upsets me. It just does. Because like I'll sit around and I'll watch. And they just make the game look so freaky, so easy. Okay, but the Masters is different. It's Augusta. It's I know all of the players because the field's smaller. Like you watch, like the U.S. Open or whatever, and they got some guy that I've never heard of teeing off, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really care about that. Sorry, I don't. But the Masters, like it is the biggest stars, the best players in golf, and it's the Masters. It's one of the best sporting events of the year. As Gritty said in our YouTube chat, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. The course is beautiful. It is. And like you're sitting around, it's like I don't think I've ever seen that much green in my entire life. And it's just a fun course to watch guys play. And, like I don't know enough about golf courses. But what I do know is that I want it to rain on Sunday so terribly. So, Jonathan, what does rain have to do with anything? This might come off as offensive, and I'm sorry if it does. But taking a nap during the Masters after church on Sunday is like, it's the best nap in the world. It is. It is the absolute best nap because I'm going to lay down. I'm going to listen to Jim Nance, who's got a great voice for golf. It's pretty soothing. Puts me right to sleep. The only thing that would make it better is if it rained. I hope it rains on Sunday so terribly bad because if we get the rain plus the Masters, that is the perfect conditions for an elite Sunday nap. Okay? Napping to golf is just the best. It is. There's no way around it. And I can't wait. Hopefully I'll wake up to where at a point where like the Masters is in balance. It's going to be great. I can't wait. I also want to address something else. There's this chick who covers Florida basketball. And she's everywhere. She's this blonde girl. She did like an interview that was kind of awkward and she blew up for some reason. Okay? And she posted some video of her like sitting courtside in like press row, getting excited because she covers Florida and they were going to like win the national title. And all these people got super upset about it, talking about how like you shouldn't root for the team that you cover. And I think that is insane. I do. Because when I moved here, I was not a Colts fan. I was not a Pacers fan. I didn't care about Indiana basketball or Purdue basketball or anything like that. And then I moved here and I started doing this show. And I went from, watching like 40 Pacers, 40 to 50 Pacer games a year to now I'm watching like 75 Pacer games a year. And now, because of that, like I really love watching the Pacers. I went from, glancing in, checking in from time to time on the Colts and their season to now I watch every quarter of every single game. And when that happens, like you just naturally become a fan. That is, the really simple reality of it. And, people are just like dunking on this poor chick who looks like she's in college. And it's just like, hey, like, I don't think it's problematic as all. As long as, like, whatever you write or interview or whatever, you still ask really tough questions. So I keep seeing that. And I'm just like, I don't know. Can we talk about anything else? That's what that story is. That story is, I don't have anything else to talk about. So let's talk about that. And it's just really annoying because, like, anyway, who cares? Luka Doncic made his return to the Dallas Mavericks last night, put up a whopping 45 points, and it was brutal. Just brutal watching that game. Luka, cries during the tribute video, which tells you all you need to know about how he feels about the trade. Dirk is like, he's in the crowd. He's watching from his box. It's the second game Dirk has been to since the trade. The other one he went to was in LA, and it was for Luka's debut. And I was thinking about this, while that was going on. If the best player in the history of your franchise gives someone the stamp of approval, that should mean so much more than what your general manager, who's a former Nike executive, thinks. Simple as that. Like, if the Colts drafted a guy and they come in their rookie year and they're awesome, think like Luka Doncic level quarterback play, and Peyton Manning shows up and is like, yeah, that guy's awesome. You should probably keep that dude around. In fact, me and that guy are friends. That's how good he is. Then, like, that should matter. And you should not, under any circumstance, trade that guy away. Especially when, once again, a Nike executive is like, the guy who's like, oh, no, I think we should. But the one thing that I just find so funny, not funny, really more interesting than anything else. Michael Malone and Calvin Booth won the NBA Finals 2 years ago. And they got fired with 3 games left in the season. 5 days before the NBA regular season was over, the Nuggets pulled the plug on those 2 guys because they weren't winning enough. And then you have the Mavericks with, Patrick Dumont and Nico Harrison being, public enemy number 1 of every person that lives in Dallas because of what they did. And those guys still have jobs. That's crazy. That is unfathomable to me. And I don't think that they're going to get fired. You've got people in the entire stadium last night chanting, "Fire Nico." The whole game, by the way. I don't know if you watched or not. But it's just these relentless chants of "Fire Nico." And every time Luka touched the ball, people would go crazy. And every time he scored, people would go even crazier. And you're sitting there and you're watching the game, and it's just like, geez, like, this is just brutal. Like, I would love to be there, but I think I would hate myself if I was there. And the fact that those 2 guys still have jobs is insane to me. And I would like to think that the ownership is going to fire those guys as soon as the year's over, because that's what they absolutely 1,000% should do. But they won't, because they're tone deaf. And this is part of the issue with ownership in sports now. It's like it's like when Mark Cuban bought the team, he bought the team just because he loves basketball and he wanted to buy the Mavericks. The guy who bought the Suns, the guy played college basketball at Michigan State. Like, the guy bought the Suns just because he loves college basketball. And while that guy has made a lot of mistakes, in his very short time as an owner, the Suns are going to be good at some point because that guy cares so much about the team and basketball itself. The people who bought the Mavericks, they do not care in the slightest. They're there to build their casino and attach it to, American Airlines Center where the Mavericks play, and that's really all that they care about. And that's really problematic. That's the good thing about the Pacers ownership here. Seems like they really care about basketball and like they just want the Pacers to be good. When the Colts were awesome, it's because Jim Irsay cared about the Colts and he wanted them to be good. It wasn't just a way for him to make a little bit of extra money because, as we know, sports teams are highly, highly profitable. And I think the biggest lesson in this whole Luka thing is you have to have ownership that is invested not just in the bottom line, but also in the fans and the product that's put out on the court. Even though one could argue, like I did, they don't care about the bottom line because they're going to lose millions and millions of dollars this year. This was reported yesterday because they moved Luka. And yeah, it's still the most shocking thing that has happened in sports this year. We've had, plenty of crazy things happen. And yeah, it's just brutal. John Buzzer chiming in on Twitter. Great point saying that, the Cubs are similar. The owners don't care. That's why Cuban was a great owner. That's exactly right. You had to have ownership that cares. And the Mavericks don't have that. The Cubs don't have that. Jim Irsay doesn't really seem to care anymore. That's part of why the Colts aren't very good. And until that changes, the Colts will continue to be bad. And as long as the Pacers have good owners that care about what that team looks like, they will continue to be good. That is the simple reality of it. When we come back here in about 4.5 minutes, speaking of the Colts, the quarterback situation, it's got to be figured out here at some point. Bruce Arians weighed in on Anthony Richardson and his future. I'll play that audio for you when we come back here in about 4.5 minutes.
Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. The Masters. What's going on right now? Guys have teed off. Round one started today. Going to be a great tournament because the Masters is always a great tournament. No way around it. And hopefully the Colts have a great football team, and we're just going to continue this great show. Everything's great today because the Masters started. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow and watch the show there. You can also listen via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And then if you want even more from me, you can go check out my other YouTube stuff over at My Take Is. All right, Bruce Arians had some thoughts on the Indianapolis Colts young, because he is young, quarterback. So glad that Kay Adams decided to point that out to us earlier in the season. And Bruce Arians was asked about Anthony Richardson and just kind of his future in the NFL and just what he thinks about him in general. Here is Super Bowl winning coach Bruce Arians talking about Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. Bruce Arians right there, Super Bowl winning head coach, weighing in on Anthony Richardson and just his thoughts on Anthony Richardson as a prospect. Okay, and he is, in no way there writing him off in any way, shape, or form. But, he was honest, and I think his critiques were more than fair. He thinks Anthony Richardson needed 2 more years in college as a passer. And he thinks that Daniel Jones is going to push him. He said that right there at the end. And I think both of those things are incredibly true. I think that we saw that. And, whenever you hear him kind of talk about Anthony Richardson, he makes this comment of how coming out felt like he needed 2 more years at Florida. And when you watched Anthony Richardson, those first 2 seasons, every pass attempt he threw, I think everyone kind of came to that same conclusion of, yeah, this guy wasn't ready. But we knew this before he was drafted. He was drafted because he had a big arm and he's fast and physical and he can dunk a basketball. And, talking to Kevin Potts, who we'll have on again probably at some point next week to continue to talk about the NFL draft. He talked about how, the pocket presence was good and some of the processing seemed like it was there, but like you're watching these first 2 years and you don't really know if it's there or not because as a passer, he's just not consistent enough yet. So Bruce Arians says that he needs 2 more years. Well, those 2 years have happened. Those 2 years of development as a passer are now under Anthony Richardson's belt. He's had 2 years with the Indianapolis Colts in a full offseason this last offseason to develop into hopefully an NFL-level quarterback in terms of his ability to pass the football. And I would like to think that the coaching he's gotten with the Colts is better than the coaching that he would have gotten playing for the Florida Gators this previous season. Okay? If Anthony Richardson is going to make any sort of leap, because, we really like that word, it's going to be this year. It has to be this year. And Anthony Richardson has received many comparisons to the second best quarterback in the NFL, Josh Allen, really from the moment that he was drafted. He's pretty raw coming out of Florida, like how Josh Allen was pretty raw coming out of Wyoming, and, they're both big and fast and athletic and all of those things. Josh Allen is famously the only quarterback in the history of the NFL to have a year 3 leap. And part of why that didn't happen until year 3 was because he, like Anthony Richardson, needed 2 years to develop as a passer. When you go look at Josh Allen's numbers at Wyoming and you compare them to Anthony Richardson's numbers at Florida, they're really similar. You could argue that Josh Allen was worse. Okay, they both completed around 55% of their passes. Anthony Richardson at 55% for his career. Josh Allen at 56%. Josh Allen threw 6 more interceptions than Anthony Richardson. Josh Allen ran the football more than Anthony Richardson, which tells me that the guys calling plays at Wyoming were like, yeah, we don't want this guy to throw the football too much. Let's just keep running him. And once again, Josh Allen, famously, the year 3 leap. And that is the hope for Anthony Richardson this season. And based off of everything that Bruce Arians said, it seems like this is kind of when it was going to happen, if it happens anyway. Because, Bruce Arians knows way more about how to play quarterback and, what good quarterbacks look like than I do. And if he thinks that coming out of college, he needed 2 more years, well, we've got him. Let's go. And it makes sense for both Allen and Richardson for Allen to not have the leap until year 3. Because when Josh Allen came into the NFL, he was just less polished than every other quarterback that has been drafted in the first round in the modern era, except for maybe Trey Lance coming out of North Dakota State. And let's just look at the quarterbacks from last year. 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy didn't play, but a lot of those guys found success pretty quickly. And when you compare their total number of passing attempts to Anthony Richardson and Josh Allen and the numbers, all of those guys played significantly more football. They threw significantly more passes than Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson both did in college. And when you're coming into the NFL, less polished, with less reps, it's going to take you a little longer to figure it out. And that's what happened with Josh Allen. Year 3 happens, boom, he becomes great. For Anthony Richardson, hopefully, the exact same thing happens. When Anthony Richardson was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, you and I both knew that the dude was drafted on potential. That's just the fact of it, that he wasn't as ready as everyone else who got drafted. The C.J. Strouds of the world and the Bryce Youngs, who's had a pretty normal first-round quarterback experience. Most quarterbacks that are drafted in the first round have a rough rookie season because playing in the NFL is hard, right? And they have a full year of starting and seeing NFL defenses and figuring out the differences between college football and the NFL. And okay, I could get away with making that throw in college, but I can't make that throw at the NFL level. It takes them a full year to figure that out. And then their second year, things go a lot better. So it happened with Bryce Young. Bad last year, started the season a little rough. Andy Dalton took his spot. Bryce Young came back and was great. Great's probably a bit much, but he was much, much better than what he was at the start of the season and his rookie season. Most NFL quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, need a year to just adjust to the speed of the NFL and kind of figure out how different it is from playing in college, because they're not the same sport. They're not. When you look at Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson, they're coming into the NFL not only needing to figure out how the NFL works, not only needing to figure out what throws they can and can't really get away with, but they're also having to physically improve. And it is such an advantage for teams and quarterbacks when they draft guys that you don't have to worry about mechanics and being accurate and all of those things. Because then those guys can just show up, learn the playbook, learn how the NFL works, and and be done with it. But for Richardson and Allen, that just wasn't the reality. And the glass half full view of Anthony Richardson, which I am going to try to provide from time to time during the NFL season, we will of course do, the whole quarterback defense attorney thing where I relentlessly defend Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever the quarterback winds up being. And, we'll hash it out every Monday like we did during the entire season. And the glass half full, quarterback defense attorney thing for Anthony Richardson is this. Like, he figured things out last year. Did he make a leap? Absolutely not. But you don't have 3 game-winning drives like he did unless you figured something out. He looked great against the Jets. He put together not only his best game of the year, the best game of his career, but he also put together what can only be described as one of the cleanest game-winning drives you will ever see. Okay, they ran like 6 plays, and he completed every pass, and then he ran the ball in with ease. That's the reality of it. And then a couple weeks later, they play the Patriots, and he leads it's just this ugly, gutsy game-winning drive where, receivers are dropping passes and it's just, like first and second down, it'd be 3rd and 8, and he would just kind of figure it out. Like, oh, wow, I'm going to run for 9 yards here. Or there's, Kylan Granson wide open. Like, let me hit him real quick. And it was just gutsy. It was like a 19-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. And I just remember watching that being like, this is the most beautiful, ugly thing I've ever seen. Okay. And those good moments were few and far between last year. I fully understand that. But man, those good moments, like that game against the Jets, that drive against the Patriots where everything seemed to go against the Colts, yet he found a way. Like, those were great moments for him last year. And if he can just be more consistent, if he can complete that 2nd and 8 slant route to Josh Downs where all of a sudden it's 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 8 like it was repeatedly last year, we're going to see him and the Indianapolis Colts be significantly better. Even if, his completion percentage is only like 62%. But he's just a little bit more consistent on those underneath throws. And he just gets into 3rd and manageable more often. Because like there were so many times last year. Like I wish I could find it. I would be willing to bet you that the Colts were in the bottom 5 in the NFL. And the number of 3rd and 8 and the number of 3rd and 8 or mores that they faced. It happened way too often. If he can just hit some of these layups, then he'll be better and the Colts will be better. Even if he misses some of the layups from time to time, because every quarterback in the NFL misses throws occasionally. Like, it happens. You just can't miss them as often as Anthony Richardson did last year, as we all know. And hopefully, the last 2 years of development, the full off season, not being hurt, being able to go work out with that quarterback guru, hopefully that leads to Anthony Richardson coming back and just being better. Like, forget a leap. Can we just be like a little bit better? Can we just not complete 48% of our passes? Can we get it closer to, like 60 something percent? That would be lovely. Okay. And so hopefully the accuracy itself improves. Hopefully the processing gets better. Like, there was a lull of games last year watching the Colts where it felt like every time Anthony Richardson dropped back to throw the football, they were throwing the ball like 15 or more yards down the field. And it felt like the plays were designed that way. And I'm not trying to shift the blame from Anthony Richardson to Shane Steichen, because ultimately Anthony Richardson was the one who made the throw, and he certainly could have opted out and thrown it to the check down. But you can't only throw deep passes. And so hopefully Anthony Richardson learns and he's a little more willing to throw the football underneath this next season. Hopefully the threat of Daniel Jones taking his spot leads to Anthony Richardson taking what the defense gives him more. Hopefully it leads to him just being more consistent. Hopefully it leads to Anthony Richardson getting in at 4 a.m., starting the breakfast club. You know what Anthony Richardson needs to do? He needs to go live with that Ashton Hall dude who does those really weird get ready with me videos, and he wakes up at like 3:50. Anthony Richardson should go hang out with that guy. Settle into the routine. Go to bed at 7:30. All that good stuff. So he's got to be better. And I think he will be. With, the threat of losing your job and a full off season to hopefully improve, and going into his 3rd year where like he actually played in games last year. Like, I mean, he played 4 games his rookie season. That was it. Like, those weren't even full games. So hopefully this is the year where things click a little bit and he looks like maybe not a stud, but at least a starting caliber NFL quarterback. Because if he doesn't, then it'll be Daniel Jones starting. The Colts will draft a new quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. It won't be Arch Manning. It won't be Nico Iamaleava out of Tennessee, the two guys that are likely to headline that class. Okay, and it won't be one of those two guys because the Colts will go 8-9 or 9-8, and they'll have the 12th pick in the draft, and they'll wind up taking the third or fourth best quarterback in the draft class. And we'll be right back to hoping that this next quarterback develops. And we'll be right back to watching Carson Wentz Part 2, the Daniel Jones edition, this season. And I don't want that, and you don't want that either. So hopefully this is the year that Anthony Richardson figures things out, and we don't have to worry about the quarterback's situation in Indianapolis anymore. Speaking of the quarterback situation in Indianapolis, Sam Ehlinger's gone. He is in Denver, which means the Colts need a new third-string quarterback. They are going to draft one. They hosted my guy, Quin Ewers, yesterday, which I love for several reasons. I will give you those reasons when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
fits in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. NBA playoffs begin soon. Playing games. We got those starting next week. The Pacers. It's great. It's great. But the Indianapolis Colts do reign supreme here in the great city of Indianapolis. And Quin Ewers visited with the Colts yesterday for a nice little pre-draft visit. I don't know how it went, but it does confirm that the Colts are looking to take a quarterback at some point during the NFL draft. It'll probably be a day 3 pick. Quin Ewers, every time I check some mock draft, it's like, yeah, Quin Ewers continues to plummet down draft boards. And I was just like, I don't get it. He's probably going to be a day 3 pick, which means he's perfect for the Indianapolis Colts because that is when they're going to take an NFL quarterback, a quarterback in the NFL draft. And it's going to be great. I can't wait because I do think that Quin Ewers is a good, solid option as not only a day 3 quarterback, but also as your third string quarterback. The guy's talented. Okay. Like you're not the number 1 ranked recruit coming out of high school. If you're not talented, you aren't the highest rated recruit ever coming out of high school if you're not supremely talented. So he is that. He won a bunch of games at Texas. Like this dude knows how to win. He's won. He's played in big games. And if I'm drafting a quarterback at all, really, but especially on day 3, like I want a guy who's got some pedigree. Like I want a dude who's won some games. I want a guy who's, got some talent as well. And Quin Ewers has all of those things. He does. That's just the very simple reality of it. Quin Ewers won college football playoff games at Texas. He won his conference multiple times. He was highly touted coming out of high school. Is he a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL? Probably not. Okay, if he was, he wouldn't be a day 3 pick. But of all the options that are going to be available on day 3, Quin Ewers is the guy that I like the most. Kyle McCord couldn't handle being at Ohio State. He had to transfer to Syracuse. It's like, he was good at Syracuse. Yeah, he played in the ACC. The ACC stunk. It's the worst conference in college football last year. Well, what about Riley Leonard? He played at Notre Dame. We want the less talented version of Anthony Richardson coming in here? A guy who can run but can't really throw the ball? Yeah, that sounds lovely. Quin Ewers, however, handled being the guy at Texas, which is not an easy thing to do. Quin Ewers won games, and most importantly, like he can actually throw the football. Like if something awful happened and Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both got hurt, let me say that again. If something realistic happened and Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both got hurt, and they had to put Quin Ewers in there, I'd be like, yeah, like this guy could probably complete some passes. I'd feel better about him than I would Sam Ehlinger. And I feel even better about the kid after hearing his former head coach, former head coach, Steve Sarkisian, talk about Quin Ewers at the professional level. Hopefully you guys can hear this time because apparently some of you didn't hear that Bruce Arians audio from earlier. Here's Coach Sarkisian talking about Quin Ewers and his ability to succeed in the NFL. Coach Sarkisian right there talking about Quin Ewers and why he translates well to the NFL. And I don't know why the listeners on YouTube can't hear that. That's weird. We'll have to get that figured out. Anyway, talking about the mental makeup. When you hear Coach Sarkisian talk about him, it's very clear that Quin Ewers is an adult. Okay? the way that Coach Sarkisian talks about him, it seems like they put a lot on his plate in terms of, choosing protections and doing all of those important things. And if you're going to be a third string quarterback, you better be an adult. Okay? The Colts need more adults. Quin Ewers seems like he is that. Okay? Like you can't be making waves as the third string quarterback. Like you better show up, do your job, and go home. And Ewers seems like the type to make no issues. He also seems like the type that if he doesn't play, it's not really going to bother him. Okay? Coach Sarkisian in that clip, makes mention of how like he's pretty even keel. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He's the same guy every single day. So I like that aspect of it. If he does get to play, then you know that he can do the very simple things at a minimum. Okay? And hopefully he never gets to play for the Colts. That's the hope. Whoever the Colts end up drafting as their, on day 3 today, or excuse me, on day 3 for the NFL draft, hopefully we reach this point where, they never have to play because Anthony Richardson shows up and he's a stud and he looks like one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Okay. Like that's the hope. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but we're going to have to wait and see. John Buzzard tweeted me on Twitter, as he does, which is great, asking how excited I am for the NBA playoffs. Dude, I'm so pumped. I can't wait. I am just, and not even for the NBA playoffs, just it very rarely happens in the NBA where you're coming up on game 82 and there are still questions about like who's going to play who. And when you look at the Western Conference, it's just like no one knows. Just firmly. Like there's 2 or 3 games left in the season for every team in the NBA. And when you look at the Eastern Conference, the top 6 seeds are fully solidified. You know exactly who they're going to be. You know who the 7 seed is going to be. It is going to be Orlando. Okay, the only question in the Eastern Conference really is the 8, 9, and 10 seeds. Okay, are the Hawks, Bulls, or Heat going to be the 8 seed? Okay, because obviously you'd rather be the 8 than the 10 because then you only have to win 1 game and you have 2 chances to lose and all that good stuff. Okay, but like we know who the 1 seed is out in the East. We know the 2 and the 3. The Pacers are 1 win away from being the 4. Maybe the Bucks and Pistons flip, but it's seeming more and more like the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be the 5 seed. If they win tonight, it's theirs. And so Eastern Conference fully solidified. We know exactly what's going to happen there. And then you look out west. We know 3 things. We know the Thunder are going to be the 1 seed, and they have secured home court advantage through the NBA Finals. We know the Houston Rockets are going to be the 2 seed. And we know the Lakers are going to be a top 6 seed. We don't know if they're going to be the 3, the 4, the 5, or the 6 seed. But we know that they're going to not be in the play-in. Everything else is up for grabs. Everything else is up for grabs. Oh, we also know that the Kings and Mavericks are going to be the 9 and 10 seeds in the play-in. But everything else is up for grabs. The Nuggets, Clippers, and Grizzlies, all 3 have 32 losses. Not bad. And then the Warriors and the Timberwolves both have 33 losses. All 5 of those teams are within a game and a half of each other. And everyone is doing everything that they can to ensure that they're not on that Oklahoma City Thunder path. And so, yes, John Buzzard, I am very excited about the NBA playoffs. I'm jazzed up. I'm ready to go. Like we got playing games on Tuesday. It's going to be great. And then the following week, the real stuff starts, and I can't wait. But I'm also very excited for tonight and tomorrow night and Sunday, because it is very rare in the NBA that games 80, 81, and 82 really have any sort of major implication on what the seeding is going to be in the playoffs. And I can't wait. I can't wait till tonight. I'm going to go home. I've got a radio hit at 5 o'clock in Pennsylvania that I'm very excited for. And then at 7:30, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch TNT because the Indiana Pacers are playing on TNT tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers with a golden opportunity to clinch the 4th seed tonight, to clinch home court advantage in the first round. Because the Cavaliers are set. They're going to be the 1 seed. They cannot surpass the Oklahoma City Thunder to have home court advantage through the NBA Finals. They have nothing left to play for. That means, and this is confirmed, Darius Garland not playing tonight. Evan Mobley is not playing tonight. Donovan Mitchell not playing tonight. Max Strus not playing tonight. Those are 4 very important players for the Cavaliers. 3 of their 3 best players are not playing tonight on the road here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse against the Indiana Pacers. This game's at home with a lot on the line. To clinch home court. I couldn't tell you the last time the Pacers had home court advantage in the first round of a playoff series. That's where I'm at with them. Okay? So, let's go. Let's win tonight, and let's shut it down until the playoffs start. Because an 82-game season, man, that's a lot of games. I know people don't think that the NBA is physical anymore because Bill Lambier's not standing in the lane. But the game, I promise you, that game is very physical. I promise. And over the course of an 82-game season, that wears on you. And then you factor in that they're either going to play the Bucks or the Pistons in the first round. Both of those teams are incredibly physical. And you don't want to walk into that series with any sort of limp whatsoever because you're going to get, 100 Giannis Antetokounmpo elbows or shoulders into your chest over the course of that series. If you play against the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart is going to fight at least one of your players. Hopefully it's James Johnson. My money's on James Johnson. So Pacers, please win tonight. Let's get some rest heading into the playoffs because they're going to need all the rest that they can get when they play the Pistons or the Bucks. All right, because those teams are tough. Those teams are physical. And both of those teams, I'm going to pick the Pacers to beat either one of them. But both of them are more than good enough to beat the Pacers over the course of a 7-game series. If you're playing against Giannis, good luck beating that dude 4 times. Good luck beating that dude 4 times. Okay? Yeah, that's going to be brutal. That's going to be so incredibly tough, right? And then if you win that series, congratulations. You have a date with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have been the best offensive team in the NBA all year. That team can shoot it, man. They're going to be so tough. Even though I will be honest, I would much rather the Pacers play the Cavaliers than the Boston Celtics, who are quietly playing really, really well right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're going to win 60 games. The Celtics got off to a somewhat slow start, and it's just because they had just won the NBA Finals, and then they've just turned it on. Jason Tatum just he's just having the best year of his career. And I'm telling you, Boston, they're the best team in the East. Love Cleveland. They've been an awesome story. But because crazier things have happened, if the Cavaliers and Celtics meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, I can tell you right now, I am undoubtedly taking Boston in that series. Okay? I'm very excited, though, to watch the Pacers tonight. And you can make a real argument that they're the 3rd best team in the East. They are one of 3 teams in the Eastern Conference that has a winning record against teams that are over 500. Cleveland does, Boston does, and the Pacers do. There's not another team in the Eastern Conference with a winning record against teams that are over 500, which makes it incredibly annoying that the Pacers have 14 losses to teams that are under 500. If they didn't have that, they would be the 3 seed, and that would be awesome. But, for some reason, they can't beat the Wizards. But that's not true. They did beat the Wizards, but you get what I'm saying. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, more stuff on the Colts and a little bit more NBA. Good old John Buzzard over on Twitter tweeted at me and asked actually a really interesting question that I will answer when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow and watch the show there. You can also follow the station at Ticket 1430 to get updates on my show and the Dan Dawkins Show, which you can listen to from noon to 3 right here on 1430 AM or via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. And if you want even more from me, you can go check out my other YouTube channel called My Take Is. Now, over-unders are out for the NFL this season, and I will give you my over-under favorites at some point. Did really well on those last year, hit all three, and we're hopefully going to hit all three again this year. The Colts over-under win total is set at 7.5. Feels like the right number. Based on what we've seen from the Colts these last two seasons, it just makes sense to feel this way. And whether or not you're going to bet the over or the under, you have to ask yourself one very simple question. How do you feel about the quarterbacks that the Indianapolis Colts are potentially going to play this season? If you think that Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones is going to be better this year than the quarterback situation that the Colts had last year, then bet the over. If you think that they'll perform the same or worse, then bet the under. For me, I think it's going to be really hard for the Colts to have worse quarterback play than what Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson brought to the table last year. I do think Anthony Richardson will come back better than he was last year. I think it's hard to get much worse than he was last year. And being better than Joe Flacco is not that hard. It's just not. Sorry, he wasn't very good. He has had a full offseason without having to rehab to work on his ability to throw the football. Bruce Arians said yesterday that apparently Anthony Richardson has a reputation as a hard worker. And if that's true, then he should come back a better player. Here's the thing, though, with the Colts. They are the definition of average in every way, shape, and form. The Colts are going to win 8 or 9 games. That is just the rule of the Indianapolis Colts. When you hire Chris Ballard, you sign up for 8-9 or 9-8. Like, that's what you're signing up for. And this Colts roster is pretty average. It is. Now, part of why I do like the over, I don't know if I'm going to bet the over or not. I don't know if I like it that much. Is like this defense is better. It just is. Latu is hopefully going to come back, and hopefully this year I'll be able to talk about sacks and not pressure rate. Hopefully, Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum are able to come back they're able to come in to Indianapolis and give this defense a real jolt. They did upgrade with their defensive coordinator, hiring Lou Anarumo and getting rid of Gus Bradley. And hopefully those changes on the defensive side of the football enable the Colts to be better. Hopefully it enables the offense to be like, you know what? Like, we can score 28 and still win. We don't have to score 30. Because once again, that Colts defense was absolutely horrendous last year. So with the defense being better, with the quarterback play probably being better, because once again, it's just hard to be any worse than what Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson were last year, I do think that the Colts find a way to hit that over. I reserve the right to change this opinion based off of what they do in the NFL draft. And after the official schedule comes out, because the order of which you play teams and when your bye week is and how many teams you're going to play that are coming off bye weeks, all of those things matter. And so I reserve the right to change my opinion on it. But as of right now, I do think that the Colts go at least 8-9 and they find a way to be better than what Vegas thinks that they're going to be, putting that line at 7.5. The Masters started today. It's a great time of the year. The only thing that I truly know about golf is that I'm terrible. But, the Masters is It's one of the best sporting events of the year. Like, it just is. There's a bunch of aura around it, as the kids say. And, like, I won't watch much today. I won't watch much tomorrow. I'll take a glance on Saturday, and then Sunday I will be in tune with it. Okay, I'll be tracking. I probably won't watch it. I'll probably be watching the NBA games because there's 15 of them on Sunday, and I can't wait. It's going to be a blast, and I can't wait. But what I'm really looking forward to is once all those NBA games are over, I'm going to turn on the Masters. My wife's going to be gone. She asked me yesterday. She said, "Jonathan, I have a student," because my wife's a teacher, and she said, "Jonathan, I have a student who is in a play, and she asked me to go and watch her play. Will you come with me?" And I hesitated. Never hesitate. That was a mistake on my part. She's like, "You don't want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." I just leaned into it. I didn't want to lie and be like, "No, let's go do that." Because originally she was going to go on Saturday night, and I was like, "Can you go any other time?" She was like, "There's a showing Sunday afternoon." I was like, "Go then," because I have basketball and the Masters to watch. And what I mean by that is I'm 1,000% going to sleep through the Masters. I can't wait. I hope it rains on Sunday, because that is prime napping condition. Golf and rain. Oh, just sounds lovely. It sounds great. And so, yeah, I really hope it rains on Sunday, because that would just be an absolute bomb of a nap, right? Obviously, after I watch all of the basketball that is set to transpire. John Buzzard chiming in on Twitter, as he often does, at __ Jonathan Smith. If you want to tweet at me there. John Buzzard with a take. And I always appreciate the takes, especially ones that are very well thought out. John Buzzard chiming in saying, "I'm thinking the Thunder should not play Chet Holmgren much as he becomes healthy. They're better without him. Would you trade him once he gets healthy or this offseason?" I would not, because I think the dude's really, really good. And there just aren't very many 7-foot rim protectors who can also shoot the three at the same level that Chet Holmgren does, just floating around. He's also got a lot more to his offensive game than just shooting threes. Like, he can really handle the basketball and do all of those things. Yeah, I wouldn't trade him. I think they're better with him, just because I think one of the things that isn't talked about nearly enough at every level of basketball, college and the NBA, is just the ability to shapeshift. And what I mean by that is the ability to play different styles. Because, we're going to hear this a million times. We're going to hear about matchups through the entire postseason of the NBA. That's what we're going to hear about. Oh, this team matches up with this team really well because they have these players, and they're going to be able to go to this lineup, and will the team that they're playing have a counter to it? And when you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, Chet Holmgren gives them a counter to everything. Oh, the other team's going small. Fantastic. We can now play Chet Holmgren at the 5. Oh, the other team, they want to go big. Fantastic. We can play Chet Holmgren at the 4. And because of his ability to shoot the basketball, we don't have spacing issues with Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor with him. And so because of that, you can't get rid of that guy. But, if the Thunder wanted to get rid of him, send him over here. He'd be great here in Indianapolis. And so, yeah, I think they're better with him, because you want to have the ability to shapeshift and match all the different lineups that you're going to see with all the various teams that you're going to see as you try to win 4 playoff series, which is one of the hardest things to do in sports. And Chet Holmgren's ability to allow the Thunder to look different is part of why they're the favorite to win 4 series in a row going into the NBA playoffs. And this is something that makes the Pacers so awesome and so interesting. And it's part of what makes the Cavaliers and the Celtics 2 of, the 3 best teams in the NBA. They're all so deep that you can mix and match. When you look at the Pacers, they have their pretty standard lineup. Halliburton, Nesmith, Nembhard, Pascal Siakam, and Miles Turner, right? Those are their starters. Those are the guys that they want to play. But if they want to go small, Obi Toppin and Jarris Walker, give them the option to do that. They can do that small but big lineup with Nembhard, Halliburton, Walker, Toppin and Siakam, and because no one on the floor is shorter than 6'5". Then again, you don't have a real 7-footer, but like they're able to play a little bit quicker and cause a little more havoc on the defensive side of the ball. And because of Obi Toppin and Pascal Siakam and their ability to shoot the ball, like they can go bigger as well if they want. And so like just the Pacers, and what makes them such an interesting team going into the playoffs is that ability to mix and match and do all of these different things with their lineups. And so I can't wait to watch the playoffs. I'm juiced up about it. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm excited for tonight. Pacers, Cavaliers game is at 7:30, and I can't wait. Obviously, the Masters are going on as well, and we'll be keeping the finger on the pulse of that. If I had to pick a winner, I'm going to take Scottie Scheffler because he's the best golfer in the world, and if he plays his best, then he's going to win the Masters. That's just pretty simply how I feel about it. In other news, Luka Doncic returns to Dallas last night, gives them 45 points. It was really weird because every time he touched the ball, Mavericks fans went crazy, as they should. It was so funny. It was a really just weird viewing experience because he makes his return and everyone in that building, Lakers fans and Mavs fans, are cheering for him. Every time he touched the ball, like the crowd just erupted. And every time he scored, the crowd just erupted. And it was really weird. It was. And one of the things that happened in that game last night that I think that isn't really being discussed enough is if you've watched the Lakers ever since that Luka trade, LeBron will coast through the first 3 quarters and then he'll turn it on in the fourth. And when that happens, the fourth quarter, he turns it on. He kind of lets Luka do his thing. And then last night, they come out and like right from the tip, LeBron James is incredibly aggressive. And I was thinking about this. I was like, you know what? Like LeBron gets what it's like to go back to a place where you spent where you spent 6 years of your career at. And I think one of the cooler storylines from that game that like we haven't really, seen is like LeBron clearly wanted to win that game for Luka, the big dap up and hug at the end of it when, everyone in the crowd is giving Luka this big standing ovation. And so the LeBron James part of it, I think is an underrated part of the game that people aren't really talking about. And they're not talking about how awful Anthony Davis was last night either. He made me want to punch somebody. He did. He had a real opportunity to kind of show Mavericks fans how important he is and how great of a player he is. And he didn't take advantage of it. He was non-existent. Like there were these long stretches where he'd be on the floor where he just wouldn't do anything. Like Max Christie, the other guy in the Luka trade, was better than Anthony Davis was last night. Shot the ball better, only scored 2 less points, had more block shots than Anthony Davis. Max Christie's a guard, by the way. It was just disappointing because I thought we were going to get an elite Anthony Davis, like 35 point, 15 rebound, four block shot kind of night. I thought he would come out with this chip on his shoulder. There was something to prove of like, hey, like I know you guys are very upset about Luka no longer being here, but like, I don't know. I think I'm really good. I think I'm really good at basketball. And I thought, that he was going to come out and really look to showcase that last night. And he didn't, man. Like why he was even on the floor is really beyond me. It truly, truly is. And it was both disappointing and surprising how just atrocious he was last night. It's just brutal. The Nuggets, they won their first game without Mike Malone. I just the fact that Mike Malone and Calvin Booth both got fired 2 years after winning an NBA Finals, and yet Patrick Dumont and Nico Harrison are both still employed is wild to me. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, Jokic, after the game last night, made it pretty clear that he was notified of the decision made by the Nuggets. He said there was no conversation. It was just a decision that they made. They told him first. He seems pretty okay with it. He's a basketball genius. It doesn't matter who coaches the Nuggets. I could go coach the Nuggets, and they would win a whole bunch of games because they have Jokic. So hopefully the Nuggets don't decide to do anything crazy, like trade the best player on their team, a generational guy, in the middle of his, prime. But hey, we've seen teams do it before, so who really knows? That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune in. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Zach Gray should hopefully be joining tomorrow to give out some bets. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. It's a nice loaded show. Philip Lindsay at 12:30, The Bear at 1:30, and then Dave Pash at 2:33. Outstanding guests. You're not going to want to miss the Dan Dockett Show today. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10.